Hey developers, today we're going to look at Nuxt 3 beta. We're going to run through some of the new features that it has and why you may want to use it in your next project. And as always, if you're new to this channel, my name is Eric. I'm a full stack software developer. I'm a big fan of React, Vue.js. If you guys like those type of technologies, want to learn more, make sure you click that subscribe button. I'm actually trying to hit 100,000 subscribers. I'm really close. Yeah, so make sure you click subscribe and yeah, let's just jump into the video. All right, so here is Nuxt 3 beta. So if you go to v3.nuxtjs.org, you can check it out. They're calling it the hybrid Vue framework. Essentially, Nuxt 3 allows you to create server-side rendered apps using Vue.js and more importantly, using Vue.js 3. And you can see right here, they list a whole bunch of features. It's lighter, faster, hybrid, suspense. You can use obviously the composition API since we're using Vue 3. Has a Nuxt CLI. It uses Vite, which is that super fast HMR, so super fast reloading. Of course, it uses Vue 3, and it has TypeScript, and it has TypeScript support out of the box. It's using Vite and Vue 3, so it's a good solution if you're wanting to use TypeScript. Now, if you want to read the announcement, you can go ahead and click the read the announcement. But if you want to just jump in, you can click get started. By the way, it has a big warning right here that Nuxt 3 is currently in beta. It is not production ready. So let's take a look at what it is ready. So by the way, there is two ways you can create your Nuxt 3 app. You can use Nuxt 3 or Bridge. So Bridge is a way to take your existing Nuxt 2 application and basically upgrade it in the meantime until Nuxt 3 is production ready. It gives you some cool features. So you can see right here, they give you an idea of like the differences between Nuxt 2, Nuxt Bridge, and Nuxt 3. You can see Nuxt 3 right now is unstable, so obviously you wouldn't want to use it in production. But if you want to use Nuxt Bridge, it's semi-stable, so it's better. You can see the performance is faster. If you use Nuxt Bridge, you'll get some cool things that you would normally get if you use Vue 3, like the script setup syntax. If you haven't seen, I've done a few videos on that. You can do component auto imports, options API. It allows you to do static sites. One thing that's interesting is if you're using Nuxt 3 out of the box, you actually can't do static site generation right now. It's not available. It's being, as of this video, they are working on it, but you could still create a Nuxt site and use server-side rendered or SSR. So you can get some of these things with Nuxt Bridge if you want to take your Nuxt 2 app and upgrade it and add in Nuxt Bridge. And you can also get rid of Nuxt Bridge if you didn't like it. So that might be a good middle ground while Nuxt 3 is being worked on. There's also a few things you probably should be aware of. If you go to the community and look up the GitHub discussions, there has been a lot of talk about modules and different things that need to work on Nuxt 3. So if you click on this module support status, they have a nice big table of things. So if you're looking to use like Nuxt image, it's not quite working on Nuxt 3 yet. If you're looking to use Nuxt content, it's not quite working yet. But if you're using Nuxt Windy CSS, it works. But like Vuetify, not working really, or hasn't even been tested. Strappy, Cloudinary, Sentry. So a lot of things right now have not been tested and probably do not work with Nuxt 3. So just be aware that if you are using some of the cool things in the Nuxt ecosystem, like Nuxt image or Nuxt content, you're probably not going to be able to get it working with Nuxt 3 right now. It is in beta and they are working on it. So I assume that, in the next few months, these things will start turning into green check mark boxes. So I still think it's worth checking out and using just for fun in your own projects. We're a little early, just to keep in mind there. Let's take a look at creating an app. They have a nice getting started, and I already created the app, but essentially, if you want to create a Nuxt 3 app, we won't look at the Nuxt Bridge yet because I think it'd be easier to understand if we just look at Nuxt 3 here. And it's really easy. All you need to do is run npx nuxi init Nuxt 3 app, and then there you go. So here is our Nuxt app. It's empty, but what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create an app like this. So we're just going to have a really quick TV show search. So if I put in friends in here, it does a search and it shows me the images from an API that I'm using called TV Maze. So I can then take a look at it. It's really simple. I also added a couple of different routes here, which I'll show you guys. But let's see if we can create something similar to this. So I'm going to start my server, npm run dev. By the way, I'm using VS Code, and the only extension I'm using right now is one called Volar. So you just need to kind of search for Volar. This one right here, Vue Language Feature Support by Johnson Chu. Yes, I would check that out. Make sure you install it. I think it's well worth it. So after you get installed, you'll get this pretty Nuxt JS starter page. You can look inside here. It's actually a lot different than what you may have imagined with Nuxt 2. In Nuxt 2, you have a whole bunch of directories. With the Nuxt 3 beta, they don't add any directories. They just give you one app view, and it has this internal Nuxt welcome. So this isn't very interesting, but so I thought what we can do first is let's create a simple count app just to prove that, you know, this is indeed a Vue 3 app. I've been kind of having fun putting the script at the top instead of after the template. I kind of go back and forth on it. And obviously we can use script setup. Now I could do it language equals TypeScript if I want. Maybe I'll leave that on. Let's see what happens here. So I'm going to import in ref from Vue, and of course we're gonna do const count equals ref, and we'll start at 0, and we'll have a way to increment it. So I think I can just delete this, and then I'll put in an h1 counter, and we'll show the count, and then we'll have a button that says press me, and it'll have a click handler, and that'll just do count plus plus. So if we did this all right, it should work. So here it is. And we don't have the count showing up, so let me save it. There it is. So now we have the 7, 8, so it's being incremented as we expect, and it seems to be working. So that isn't very useful. I mean, this is essentially just a Vue 3 app at this point, but let's see some things that happen primarily because we're primarily using Nuxt. So let's just keep going. One really cool thing they did is you can actually create a server. Now you could create a server in Nuxt 2. It was a little bit more configuration. In Nuxt 3, they make it really easy, and it feels really similar to Next. So what you do is you just create a folder. We'll call it server. And then you create another folder called API. And then inside this API, we can create some sort of API route. And this will be run completely on the server side and not on the client side. So I'll create a new file called hello, and I can create a TypeScript if I want. So I guess I'll create TypeScript. And now from here, I can essentially just create whatever I want here. So let's see here. I'm going to create export default, and I have a request and a response. And now I just need to, and I'm going to just to see if this works, I'm going to return some data. I'm going to return hello world. And by the way, you see here the yellow squiggly lines because I'm using TypeScript. I guess I can put in type any, just see if it works. And now if I go to my app, and one thing I'll need to do is I'll have to stop and restart it real quickly. And it'll just reload. It does take a few seconds. It doesn't feel like super fast reload, but it finally does. And then I just need to go to /API and then hello. And here it is. Here's my hello world. Now this is running on the server side, which is really cool. So I thought maybe first what we can do is create a really simple app that goes to this TV maze, which is this website that allows you to, they have an API to grab like cover art and information about TV shows. So let's create that real quickly. I might do a little bit of copying and pasting, but let's see here. So I have a request and response. First, I want to have these typed because, we're using TypeScript. So I'm gonna import type, and it's gonna be incoming message and server response. And it's gonna come from HTTP, if I can type it right. And this request right here is going to be of type incoming message, and this is gonna be a type server response. All right, now we can have types, which is nice. And now we can know like what's happening. And also I want to import one more. I'm going to import in star as URL from URL, because we're going to assume we're going to grab information from the request object coming in. So I'm going to call this query object. I'm going to do a URL.parse. I'm going to do rec URL as string true and the dot query. So what this is saying is anytime we have like something coming in, like so it'd be like hello, and you do blah equals 1, 2, 3, it's going to return that as an object. So I'm going to have blah colon 1, 2, 3 in this query object, which would be perfect. In this case, we want to create something called server. We'll call it search. Search. And so this way I can return back what I want to search here. So cool. So now I have a query object. And let's have a data, and I already know this data object is supposed to be this way, so you're just gonna have to take my word for it. But it's basically gonna have this sort of format to it. And so I wanna do some destructuring. We're gonna assume that this query object is gonna return back this. And if the search is actually there, they actually sent it over, then I wanna do a fetch. Now, by the way, I can make this async. So I'm going to export default async. And so I can do async await. And I'm not going to do any try catches. Obviously, if you're in production, you want to like check to see if this actually works. But we're just assuming everything works. We're going to do await. And there's a cool thing called $fetch. So instead of having to import Axios in or import in node fetch inside your node server, you actually have this built-in kind of fetching thing through Nuxt. So it's $fetch, and it has a few options, and I'll show you how that works. But for right now, we can assume that's just doing a get, and we just need to put in a URL, which I am going to copy from the other page here. Cool. And actually, we'll go ahead and grab the search from here. So we'll assume that the search is there. It's going to do this API call, and it's going to return some JSON. And then I'm just going to do this write head. And this write head is, I'm going to do a 200 response. Once again, if this is production, I probably want to check the data being sent and send like a 404 if it's wrong, but we're going to be lazy here. And we're going to send a content type application JSON. And I'm going to write it. I'm going to do a JSON.stringify on the data that's returned, and I'll do an end. By the way, I'm using a plugin called Tab9, so that's why I'm able to kind of tab through some of these things, and that's why it looks like magically working. Cool. So I'm going to save it here, and once again, I'm going to stop the server and restart it because it sometimes needs me to do that. And I am going to take a look to see if this works. Now, okay, it's empty. So, but if I put in $search equals mash. Cool, so we got all this information from search. Now let's see if we can access it. And it looks like, yeah, we click the links and it goes to TV Maze. But let's see if we can do something with it. So, and you see we have this server folder, and I have this app view. But what happens if I want to like create multiple pages and have multiple information in here? So that should be easy. So I'm going to create, just like in Nuxt 2, you can create pages. And this is kind of how you do your routing. So you don't have to create a router file. So the easiest thing you can do here is create a new file called index.view. And once again, I'm just going to put a template in here and just make sure it works. Hello world. And once again, I always stop and restart the server. Seems like it needs it. And if I go back to my here, I'll just go ahead and just delete this out of the URL. Here's my counter. So it still hasn't updated. And what it's doing actually is it's still grabbing the data from app.view. So if I wanted to not use this, I'm just going to rename it to a.v. Just the heck of it. It's reloading. And now it shows the hello world from my pages folder. So now I'm good here. I have pages. Now you can create multiple layers. So let's say I wanted to create a new folder called Erik. And in the Erik, I'm going to create a new file called test.view. And I'm going to put in another template tag at the top and put in h3 test route. And if I go to /test, once again, it's giving me an error, so I'm going to have to restart it. And it's supposed to be Erik /test, I believe. Cool. So there's the test route that I just created. And you can do some other neat things here too. What happens if you wanted to have something like dynamic routes in here? Now in Nuxt 2, you use this underscore, but in Nuxt 3, it's a little bit different. So instead of doing this underscore, it looks more like Nuxt JS, where you put these brackets around it. So I can put in bracket ID dot view, and that means anything that's kind of starting with this ID will be put in here. So if I put in Erik slash 1234, still goes the test route, and you can kind of check this out too. I can put in $route.params, I believe. So you can see here ID 1234. So you can see it came right through this params, and I could go ahead and grab it. You can even do like multiple routes, more kind of crazy dynamic routes. So instead of Erik here, I can create a, let's say, some info and then group dot view. And then if I go into here, template again. And by the way, it was giving me a red squiggly line here. If you want to fix that, you can just put in an empty script setup tag, and then it kind of understands that this is a Vue file, and that's what's happening. So in the some info group, I can do same thing here, some info, and then $ here, route.params, and then it would be group. And then once again, I'll just put an empty script setup tag. And now if I save it, and by the way, don't worry about this marketplace there. And if I put in some dash, I guess I called it some dash 1234. Actually, let me go ahead and delete this, because I think what it's everything's being caught by this ID. So if I delete this route and then I refresh it, here it is. Here's my group as I expected it, with the information, the dynamic information. So that's kind of neat. You can also create, you can even create new files here and like destructure values out of it. Do something like this. I won't show you that, but it's just you can do more kind of dynamic routing stuff with your pages folder, which is kind of neat. Let me show you, before we display the information here, I want to show you one other thing, layouts. So I can create a new layout here. And this is similar to Nuxt 2. I'm going to create a folder called layouts. And then the layouts, I can create a new file called default.view. And this will show up at the beginning and the top of every file in our app. So we can do div here, and I'll say, welcome to the TV app. And also I kind of want to just make this, just for the heck of it, I'm going to make this a route. So I can put inside of this Nuxt link, and then I'll put this text in it, and then I can put in where it goes. So I'll put in to. And one thing you definitely want to do, don't forget to do this, and I've done this a few times. So if you save this and you refresh it, nothing changes. So I'm going to run npm run dev again. I'm going to let it resync. And as long as it's named, by the way, default inside the layouts folder, it'll be included for everyone. You can do custom ones too. So here it is, but you see, I don't see the rest of my app. Like everything disappeared here. So you're like, what happened? You actually have to add in a slot, just one default slot in here, and then you'll see the information that you needed. So don't forget to add the slot in here. So if you want to create a custom layout, it's pretty easy. You just create new file, custom.view. And then once again, I'll do template here. I'll do div, and inside here, I'll put in custom layout. Once again, I'll make sure I add my slot. And then inside, let's say our index file here, index.view, I'm going to come back up here and put a script and close the script. And I'm going to do setup. And by the way, you can do two things here. If you have a script set up, you can actually add just a normal script too, in case you want to use both. And I can put an export default in here and put layout, and then put in the name of the layout. In this case, it's custom. Once again, I have to stop and restart the server. And if this works, it should use my custom layout. Cool, so you can see here it says custom layout. Now if I wanted to change this back, I can either delete this or put this at default. And now it's back to the default layout, which is really nice to have. So I can create a bunch of different layouts here, and I can add in this export default and then choose which layout I want to use, or if I don't use it at all, it'll just default to the default one, the one named default.view. So that's really easy. Oh, one caveat too, if you have language equals TS here, it's gonna give you a big ol', it might give you an error. Let's see, console. So it doesn't give you an error. If you ever have a problems and you add language TS, just add them to both, because you can have both in here, and it should work fine. But luckily everything's working here. So if I go / Erik, and I got rid of the ID, so I got some info here, and I press here, now you're back. Now it does give you this weird error right here in this view warning. I think you could see it. That says that renders non-element root nodes that cannot be animated. If you see that error, I noticed it too myself. It's because if you go inside your route here, you don't have any root elements. Now Vue 3, you don't have to necessarily have a root element, but with Nuxt, because with the transitions, it recommends that you put it in there. So I just surround everything by inside my template, inside a root div, and then that way I don't get those warnings. You can ignore those warnings, but it's usually not great. So let's try this again. So if I go / Erik in here, and then I do my some info, cool, I click here. Now I'm not getting any errors anymore, so it's working as expected. All right, so we've looked over how to add layouts. We have looked at how to add pages, so you can add pages to your app. Let's look real quickly of adding a public folder. So I'm gonna copy and paste this from my other computer here. So I'm gonna copy, paste. So now I have a public folder right here with just a taco. So if we wanted to this hello world to actually show an image, I'm gonna put in /public /taco.jpg. If I did this right, it should show up. Cool, so there's my big taco JPEG image. You can see that's as easy it is. You just create a public folder and you just copy your files into it, and you can refer to /public anywhere in your app, and that's how you get your public information out of there. Okay, so let's see two other really important options in Nuxt that I haven't covered yet. And that's, if you look at the docs, there's this useFetch and useAsyncData, which can make it really easy to grab. Basically, anytime your app loads, you can get access to the server and then do things on there. So I have a couple of just real simple examples of doing that. So let's say in here we just wanted to grab the data from this endpoint that we created. Remember, we have this /API hello. We can add in a search, and then it returns back data. So let's see if we can just show the JSON representation on the main page right here, just right underneath hello world. It's gonna be really simple. So I'm gonna in this language TS, I'm gonna import. Actually, you don't even need to import it in. It's just there. You don't have to import in this useFetch. So let's just use this useFetch. So I'm gonna do const data, and since we're using TypeScript, I have to put a type here. So I'm gonna type any. It's not very good, but obviously I'd want to create the types for it. I'm not gonna do it for this one. I'm gonna do await, and then useFetch. And once again, I actually don't need to at all import this in. It just automatically is done for me, which is really cool. And we don't need to put in the exact URL because we're just grabbing it from the local server. So it's the /API hello, and then we're gonna put search, and we're just gonna hard code in like girls in there. And now data should be available for us. So if I did this right, it should work. Okay, cool. Once again, it's giving me an error that I should surround everything in a div, which will, cool. So now I just have this big ugly JSON blob right here, but you can see definitely it's working. This nice thing you can do too, which I'm not gonna get too much into, but there's a second parameter here called pick, and then you can pick like which options you want out of this. Now this is coming back as an array of objects. So this pick isn't gonna work, but let's say I had one array, so I can change it real quickly, I suppose. If we go to hello here, and instead of returning back the whole array, I just return back, let's say just one of them. It's gonna give me an error there, but let's see here. And then I come back over here, and I'm gonna pick, we know this array has a show. I don't care about the score. Let's say we just want the score right now. And we'll put in a score right here, and I save it. Cool, so now it just returned back this score instead of all that information we don't need. So you can kind of use this pick as a way to just grab information you need out of it. I'm gonna put it back the way it was because I honestly do not need, I need all the information in an array. So if I refresh this, I'm back to all the information, which is good. And now I need to kind of parse this data and do stuff with it. But I just want to show you one more thing you can do. I just forgot. There's also another one called asyncData. So I can kind of do the same thing here. I can grab a data out of here, and it's going to be await. It's going to be useAsyncData. And then I can actually give it a name of the data that I want to call it. So I don't know. Search data. And then I have a callback here of what I want to do. Oops. So inside here, I can do a $fetch, just like I did in the other one. And I can do API/hello, and I can just search, I don't know, this time let's just hard-coded mash. Okay, so this data, this is just a unique key that you want to use, so don't worry about that. And we can use, and if we do that, this data now will show information from mash. So if I did this right, refresh it, cool, so you can see now this is mash. This is mash now, instead of girls. So this is another way, and then you can also get access to the request and response objects. This will run every time on the server, anytime this route loads, so you can do stuff with it. You can also, like I said, just do like server-side requests in it as well, instead of doing it client-side. Instead of using like fetch on the client side, you can do it on server side through here. So there's also a bunch of other things you can do with useAsyncData, because you're dealing with server data. Maybe you wanted to double check to see if someone's logged in or not, and then route them somewhere else. So there's a whole bunch of things you can do. Cool. So let's try to finish this app off. I'm gonna copy and paste some stuff in here to see if we can make our nice little app. So first I'm gonna copy and paste from my other screen styles that we want. And then we're going to create some information in here. So I don't care about this hello here, but I do want a div. And first I want to create is a form. And we're not going to have an action here, but we're going to put a class equals form. And then we want to do submit, and we're going to prevent it from doing anything. We're going to go to a new search for stuff, which I haven't created yet. And then this one's going to have input. I'm going to add a V model, which is going to have a search text, which I haven't created yet either. And then we're going to have a button that's going to have basically search for TV shows. Cool. And now I'm going to have another div. In this case, we're going to have stuff. And stuff is going to be our class. And we're going to have another div. And this one is going to have a v4 on it. And we're going to do show in. We're going to create something called my data. And we want to iterate. Basically, we're going to iterate through all the data we got returned from our server and grab all the images and display them. So I have an image. And the source will be show.show.image.medium. And yeah, I think that'll be it. So let's add in all this code here to do this. And we're gonna do a few things. So we're gonna import in ref from Vue. And we're going to we're going to const search text, and that's going to be ref. And we're going to do an async function here. So I'm going to async, and we also need this my data, I guess, too. So we'll do const my data equals ref, and we'll just as any, because we're using TypeScript. Now we should be able to create our function. We're going to call this search for stuff. And we're just going to use normal fetch here because it's just client side. And we're do API hello search, and that's going to equal, just kind of want to do it like this. That's going to be search text dot value. Make sure always use dot value when you're using refs, otherwise you're going to have problems. JSON equals await data dot JSON, it should be data dot JSON, and then we're going to console log JSON, and then finally we're going to do my data dot value equals JSON. So if I did that right, we should have something working here. Okay, so let's type in, let's see if this works. Oops, I went back one. Okay, we're going to do friends. Okay, so we got, we did have one error here, and this source, I need a colon there, so it's bound to it. So let's try this again, friends. Cool, so here they all are. Here's all our friends artwork. After searching up friends, we can, a show I've been liking lately is called Evil on CBS. It's pretty good. Cool. I know what you did last summer. Just came out, I think. There it is. Awesome. So we have now been able to create a really simple app using both the client side in Nuxt and being able to access stuff on the server side. It seems to work pretty well. And now I basically created a full stack app using this and using $fetch, using the server side. I hope you guys learned a lot. If you guys have any questions, leave a comment below. I also do mentoring. So if you guys need help on your careers or Vue or React, click on the link in the description. I'll help you out. Thanks.